All right, let's get started. We're going to keep this real simple. We're going to make a 3D bracket with very few commands. That's going to be compatible with pretty much all versions of AutoCAD. We're going to start with something like this. We're going to recognize the critical dimensions of being the bolt patterns and the base to the actual bore. And that's it. We're going to start off with, we'll start over here, zoom in a little bit, and begin. All right, we're going to start out with a line command. Click up any point. We'll go from at 3.75, 0 and y. That's at the point over to x, 0 and y. It's your y and your x. Creates a segment. Return again to close it. You just have the one segment. Now we're going to go up to the bottom of the bore. So we're going to simply offset this up. It's going to be 2.6 inches to the bottom of the bore. Then we're going to create the bore, a circle. Now we're going to click the diameter option down here because right now it's in radius. 1 inch. We're going to move this. And we're going to want to collect the quadrant down here. Now, by default, it's basically going to go to the center generally, but it depends on what version of AutoCAD you're in. If you want the quadrant, you got to type it, or you got to set your OSNAP. We're going to type it, QUAD, quadrant. And here we go to midpoint. And one thing about typing out your preferences, like if you're out here and you don't want to have to miss something that you want it to always be midpoint, you can override it. You can basically hit mid, type it mid, and no matter how far out you are, closer to some other snapping point, it's always going to select the midpoint of that line, giving you the center. It's a safe way. Offset. I'll put some material around the bore. We'll do 0.6 inches. Doesn't matter if you're using millimeters, inches, whatever your system is set up in, it will work. You just type in what you want. We'll take a line. We're going to use a quadrant again. In this case, we're going to override perpendicular. And like I said, I kind of do it this way so that no matter what version of AutoCAD we're dealing with, this will work. We're going to need some material for the bolts to go through them, so 1/2 inch will be sufficient. We'll connect this shape. And then we're going to go ahead and use the mirror command. And you don't have to type the whole thing, but I typed it out for just to show you can. But you could type in mirror, and as you type it, you begin to MI is all you really need to hit, MI. Select the object you want to bring over to the other side. Ortho, snap it. I use Shift to do that on this version of AutoCAD. For the last few versions, it's been like that. There's a toggle for ortho in the old versions. Now we'll trim. Same thing here. If you just want to trim it, you can probably just hit the first couple letters, return. And in this version of AutoCAD, you select the lines. Sometimes you have to select the cutting line first and then the other ones. But in the last few years, that's what they've done. I'm okay with that. Close this line off as well. We'll just trim it. We'll erase this. That gives us a shape that we're looking for. Now, after we're done with this, this is basically all in segments. In order to work in 3D, you have to create it in a polyline. But the best way to do that is after the fact. So then, when you've got this all set up how you want it, trim and cut and do all of the offsets, whatever you're doing to scale, then you can just simply type in Pedit, PE. Select any of the lines. It'll notice that it's not a polyline. It'll turn it into one automatically if you just hit return when the default is up. Then you want to select join. Then you're going to back window. Because when you back window, everything it touches, it's going to include. So this whole line is going to be one item. That's it. Escape out after join, It's one piece. It's ready for 3D modeling. At this point, we will rotate the UCS, which I can go up here and do like this. The last few versions of this software of AutoCAD does this like in a similar fashion. Looks exactly the same. So from here, I like to look at this perspective so that I can see it from this, see the actual shape and everything. Some of you may not like that. You may want to give it a little bit more different angle. You can control it, whatever your preference. We're going to extrude this. We're going to select both of these items, and we're going to the length of the entire part, which is 4.2 inches. Now, in this case, no matter on what side of this is, what you type in, if it's positive, it will go that direction, negative or positive. If you've got it pulled down below like this, you're negative, it's going to go up. If you're above it, negative, if you're below it, and you just put in a positive, it's going to keep, that's the direction it's going to go. So we want it to go downward. In this case, it's going to make it a little more convenient for me. So I'm going to type in what I want, 4 inches, 200 thousandths. That's it. Now in this case, we want to subtract this bore out of this. Otherwise, right now what we have is basically a cylinder inside of this. If you were to say hidden lines, you won't see like two. What's better probably with shades of gray, you'll see it's kind of there, and it's just two pieces. You don't generally want that. Subtract it. This object, turn this object. Now it's one piece. So if you were to look at it and shaded, it's a hole. X-ray, it's a hole. All these views are good for checking your work. And that's how we build a base 3D model. Now we're going to have to put in these bowl holes next, and we're going to go into that. All right, we're going to go ahead and put the bowl holes in for the mount. And the first thing we got to do is we need to reorientate this plane to this surface so we can put these holes in. Easiest way to do that, just move the UCS so you can put it in an area where you'll be able to really evaluate where you want to draw. So we got to turn this plane to be aligned with this. So just type the UCS in with axis 90. I just rotated around this x-axis to rotate the plane along this surface. The idea is whenever you're drawing is to be aligned with the surface that you're trying to draw on or create new geometry from. Angle. Offset. Extrude. Same concepts as before. It's really how creative you get with what you're setting up. There's many ways to do these kinds of things. Let's pull this out because it can subtract so the tool has some clearance to get in here. You need these for convenience so we can copy them together in one shot. And subtract in one shot this part. And there we go. Delete the helpers. Put the UCS back. And that's it. That's the base. Alright, so we got the basics done, and that's how it kind of goes. But I'm going to go ahead and just quickly show what's possible. I might speed this part up a little bit. LT scale just changes your dashes, how dense they are. I'll make a more extensive video on this type of thing so the settings can be more explained. For speed, I'm just doing some very basic changes so we can have a look. That's symmetric. See? Keeping with the command line just to keep everything the same. Sometimes they change the position of these dimension areas, but it's easy to find in pretty much any version of AutoCAD. But I'm keeping this rather non-specific to what version of AutoCAD you're running. And the way to do it was the command line. What's cool as well is if you want to modify this after the fact, you've already done this work. Normally in 2D, you'd have to redraw it if you were going to do some heavy modifications. But in 3D, we don't generally have to deal with that. And we still need the holes that go into the sides. We got to drill a few holes to be able to lock down on this in this bore area. I'll start out here. Use this as a reference. We'll drill a hole and a counter bore. Now if we look over here, it's already updated. This is the nice thing of drawing 3D. You don't have to deal with these multiple updates if you're working in this mode. If you're doing in 2D, if you were to add these holes after the fact, you would be having to redraw. Another thing we can do, we can create subsections, sectional views, such as cut out, like if it's sliced in half. And we can dimension off any of this stuff. And that's basically what you have. And there it is. And look for my other videos to go in more depth on these views and dimensioning and all the extra things that you might need.